have a personal and professional motivation. I have family that grew up in DC that now live in Maryland because they can't afford to stay and live and afford to stay in this city.
I'm an advisory neighborhood commissioner, and part of what we see at the commission level is the government's failure to provide services well and equitably to DC residents. So we work on like a neighborhood level basis, but once you start talking to commissioners across DC, you see the reflection of chronic disinvestment in certain communities.
I just see how the systems that are meant to support and provide care for Ward 5 neighbors and all Washingtonians just have not met the mark. So I'm running to fight for working class families and disrupt systems that perpetuate violence, corruption, and displacement in this city.
Whether we're talking about access to medical care or access to healthy food, public transportation, it's all the same, and you see that compounded by the way the DC government provides services. So I think there's a big opportunity for the DC Council itself to do better oversight.
I'm running for council to give people another option for whom they can vote. If their values aren't represented by the Democratic candidates, you can vote for me. And yeah, I think I've got a lot to offer, new perspective, and just throwing my hat in the ring.
I get it that there are a lot of residents who are apathetic about government or cynical about government, and it is incumbent on candidates to try to reach those folks and convince them that participating in the electoral process is important. In my view, it's not good enough for somebody to complain, government doesn't do anything for me, or government is a waste of time, and then not participate and not vote. I think absolutely we affect people every day. We affect people in terms of what their minimum wage is, for example, which, by the way, is legislation I got through the council working with colleagues in Montgomery and Prince George's counties a few years ago. We affect folks in terms of whether we're going to have good police or bad police, what we're going to do about the police. That actually affects people on a daily basis.
I think it's important to remember that when I'm talking to people, that government doesn't always work for people. Government often perpetuates disparities and makes things worse, and it's just a constant reminder of coming to people with an attitude of openness and listening and the desire to make things better.
Those people who are not registered for Democrat or Republican, they're independent thinkers who know that just doing the Democratic Party thing may not be the best way to go. I would say vote on policy first. Just in general, for any election, what a politician's doing and what an elected official's doing is they're, at least in the legislative branch, they're creating policy. Say, look at the policies, don't look at the labels, and know your values and what you believe in, and see what the candidates are saying based on policy. So there's a lot of different ways you can vote for your candidate. Who's coolest, who has the best social media, whoever looks like you or whatever, but really go off policy. I think that'll remove a lot of noise.
I really think it's about being a visible and present council member in the community, not just during election time, but even when you're in office, and making sure you're walking the streets, talking to people, answering their calls and emails, and just making sure people know that you care and that you're fighting for them on the council. When we say mayoral control, though, I think it's important to distinguish that many people have different perspectives of what that means. The mayor right now has total control over every aspect of our education system. The mayor appoints the superintendent, the mayor appoints the chancellor of schools, the mayor appoints the deputy mayor of education, the mayor appoints every member of the charter school board.
I think parents and teachers and students alike will say that there have been big failures over the last decade.
We've seen the voices of our parents and teachers fall on deaf ears within DCPS. And so I would call for reestablishing a small board, and there are many ways that can look. I also don't think that board should be the State Board of Education. It should be parents from the system, educators working within the system that can inform the chancellor and DCPS on the direction it should move in. Other aspects of mayoral control I support. I think the mayor should appoint the superintendent. I think the mayor should appoint the charter board as it is right now.
What is important is that if we have a mayoral control system that puts so much decision-making into the realm of the mayor, we need a DC Council that acts as a co-equal branch of government and does robust oversight to balance out that mayoral control. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is actually the opposite.
I believe we need to support our police, put more resources into our police, that we need to stop the decline of our police force and actually increase the number of officers. At the same time, I'm very strong on accountability, that there has to be smart policing, sensitive policing, and police have to be accountable. Police have a responsibility in our society that nobody else has. They're allowed to carry a gun, they're allowed to use the gun.
I think one thing that's important is keeping people safe. Lately, the people who have been dog napping and the kids who have been taking people's cars usually just get checked in and get released, and then they commit another crime. And I think we need to have compassion for the victims of these crimes who get their property stolen, and it's traumatic.
What we need is a comprehensive public health approach to how we're going to address safety in the city.
The perspective that I come to it from is one of compassion for young people and recognizing that youth brain development is very specific. As a lawyer, I worked with a group of scientists that submitted briefs to the Supreme Court to end life without parole for youth offenders. And there's a lot of science around youth brain development in terms of susceptibility to peer pressure and also the compounding nature of trauma.
We should be taking a step back to think holistically around every tool in our toolkit and how we're going to address what's happening in the city.
Everybody has a right to feel safe in their community. And if we want our city to continue to thrive, then people are going to have to feel safe in their community. And there are things that we can do that are sensitive to the community and are smarter about policing that will reduce violent crime. First of all,
what I know to be true, given my work in education, is that no young person wakes up wanting to cause harm, break the law. And my immediate feeling as a parent in that case, in that scenario, would be, where did I as a parent fail? Where did I go wrong? Where did we as a society not give this young person what they need?
Even though somebody may be arrested and guilty of a violent crime, we still need to treat that person with respect. And we need to recognize that our criminal justice system is about justice and rehabilitation. So if my daughter murdered somebody, absolutely she should be prosecuted. But our government should treat her as somebody who should pay for her crime, be rehabilitated, and allowed to re-enter our society.
If I had a child who got into the judicial system, I would say that's my fault as the parent, and hopefully there would be some redemption. Hopefully whoever was the victim, there would be some reconciliation, and hopefully it would do what needs to be done based on our judicial system, and he'd come out and make better choices.
I would be devastated at the idea of my child entering the criminal justice system and what that would mean for him. And that's an interesting question, and it's hard to think about. I wouldn't want that for him. I would hope that there could be a response that provided accountability and reconciliation with the harmed person, but didn't condemn a young person to a life of stigma and all the negative repercussions that come from being in jail or entering youth criminal justice system. That's a very thoughtful question. Thank you.